Welcome back to the Messy Success Podcast. I am your host, Elizabeth Hinson. This is episode 106. We are going to be sharing a little bit of an update. It's like everything is changing, but like nothing's changing at the same time. And I wasn't going to share this so early, but I'm getting ready to hop on a plane to Atlanta today, and I just couldn't think of anything that I had more of a burning desire to share. So buckle up. All right, where to start? So this episode originally was going to be Mark and I with part 2 of our Turo adventure. And, my team, we have mapped out all the podcast episodes. I'm like, I don't want to be the one to mess up the entire flow. I have got to get something recorded. And Mark has just been super busy at work. And, we pass the kids back and forth, and we both work a lot. And we just dropped the ball in getting our interview scheduled. I think it actually was scheduled and something else came up. We probably went to go look at a car, to be honest. So that part 2 is coming. But I decided to wait until we actually bought the second car. We are just knee deep in car shopping, trying to find the right one. And we do have a lot of updates. So that's what was originally supposed to be airing this week. But I didn't want to mess up our entire schedule. So I was like, let me hold myself accountable and just switch this to a solo episode. I know none of that really matters, but you guys know this is where I'm just sharing everything in real time without a script and just showing up with you guys as authentically as I possibly can. So that's what this episode is all about. And I'm going to try to think of the best place to start. But I have been having a lot of entrepreneurial ups and downs, also like right on the edge of possibly being perimenopausal. So just a lot of ups and downs. And I am like the most even-keeled, positive person you will ever meet. So I know like something's going on, right? Like something's going on physically, something's going on mentally, emotionally, with my entrepreneurial journey, all the things. Because if you're an entrepreneur, you know that when, you're out of alignment or you don't know what's next, you can just kind of get this very unsettled feeling. And that's a really good way to describe it, is like, I just have felt unsettled. Like I don't know what's next. When I think about what do I want in 5 years from now with my business, like I haven't really been able to answer that question. And while I'm very excited about this pivot that I told you guys about wanting to create a business that's worth something. And I realized that if I had a photography business and a coaching business and everything was me being a solopreneur, the business is actually not worth anything. If something happens to me, or if my kids grow up and want to own the business, or I want to sell the business one day, it's just not worth anything. And that was a huge moment for me. And I knew then that I wanted to, change and just create something bigger than me. And I talked about that on the podcast a while ago. And that's kind of where this concept of creating a community management agency happened. And over the last 2 years, that's kind of what we've been working tirelessly on, is how do we change this business so that is bigger than me and worth more than me and not 100% reliant on my energy. Because part of that is like, I want to mental health proof my business. What does that mean? That means I can take time off and everything still runs and revenue still generates. Right now, if I am not working, then revenue does not generate. I mean, some does. We have, we've really gotten good at selling some of our smaller products, but most of my revenue is reliant on me. And I want to slowly change that. It doesn't have to happen tomorrow, but I kind of have known that that's what I'm working towards. So I know what I'm working towards as far as, wanting my business to be bigger than me, worth more than me, sellable, valuable. And I know that I want to be super present with my kids at this stage in their life. And Mark and I have even talked about like scaling back or me taking time off to figure out what is next. And that may or may not still happen. But I think with my newfound clarity that everything is going to fall into place and I'm going to feel a lot more grounded, because when you feel anxious or unsettled or not right, a lot of times it's because you're not truly leaning into your gifts or living your life's purpose or whatever meaning you want to give that. But I read one time that anxiety actually comes when you're not using your gifts. Gifts. I feel like it's coming out like there's no T, but there's a T there. Your gifts, your unique superpowers. When we are not using those, our body and our mind become unsettled. And some people are hyper aware of it. Like I am hyper aware of that as a, high achieving entrepreneur. Some people are not as aware of it. And some people are completely, ambitious in other areas of their life. Like my husband is perfectly content with a great job that provides for the family and allows him to be the superhero that he is. And his ambition is to be the best dad and husband and be really super present. And, that is what he lives for. And he's okay with that. And that's so admirable. And sometimes I break down to him and I'm like, I just want to be normal. Like, why am I so ambitious that I cannot stop? Right? I know my business owners and entrepreneurs can relate to that. And I have even felt like a prisoner to my own ambition at times, because the higher I rise, the more I learn and the next level that I take on, sometimes I feel like pulls me farther away from, the people that I love or people that are in my life. And it's crazy. And that's not really what this episode is about. We'll save that for another episode or a book if I ever write it. But today I wanted to tell you about this little journey where I finally can say that I know what's next and that I can picture that 5-year plan. So I've been talking with Ilya. Ilya is my creative director, and, I love partnering with her. I've mentioned her on episodes before, and we had this project with a really awesome friend of mine named Laura, where we helped her build her brand from scratch. She was leaving a business that she was a part of for like 20 years and then going off on her own. So while she had everything she needed to kind of run a business and do the business, she needed a brand. She needed an online presence. And so we helped her build her brand from the ground up and her website and all those things. And, it was like kind of us dabbling in what it would be like to be a marketing agency, which community is marketing and marketing is community. I had a little bit of denial with that when I started 2 years ago, that I just wanted to be known for community building. But I've had a lot of people come forward and tell me that I'm great at marketing. And I guess I needed to hear that to have a little bit more confidence and less imposter syndrome in saying that I'm really great at marketing. But I'm great at marketing because marketing is community. So just getting that out of the way as I talk about us being a marketing agency, it's slightly different than, community management. I found, and again, we don't know these things until we try them on. But I found with community management, people really pictured a doer, right? I had a couple of really high ticket clients that brought me on, even though very clearly, my packages state that I am like strategy consulting. We do some doing, but we don't log into other people's accounts and pretend to be them and just engage and like and comment, which is what community manager can mean to a lot of people. So I started like dabbling and calling myself like, fractional CMO or fractional head of community. And that's what I do over at Indie Law is I am head of community. And then in their second business, I am head of growth, which essentially is head of marketing. That's that whole entrepreneur thing, that I love so much. So anyway, this community management agency over the last year has now become community-based marketing agency. And we already have our pricing guide. Like we are off to the races with clients and work. And that's all kind of just happened behind the scenes because not really anything changed. But probably about 2 weeks ago, I was sitting on my couch. My husband had the kids out and I was voxing with Ilya. And I was like, gosh, like I just have a few minutes and the house is quiet and I just want to brainstorm a little. And, she said, well, if you continue to grow this as a marketing agency, like you're going to need a niche, like an ideal client that you're talking to. And I remember just like wanting to avoid that question at all costs because, I've really immersed myself in kind of two audiences. So I have my high ticket coaches, attorneys, agencies, service providers. And those are the ones that bring me in a fractional way or consulting or strategy. Like they pay my bills. They're my high ticket clients. And I love it. I love the work I'm doing. I haven't really been in love with the content. And then I have, kind of audience 2, which is my DIYers. And there are a lot of creatives, photographers, people that have been following my journey this whole time. And I love them. I love them. But they are not going to hire me to be a fractional, CMO. Like that's just not the phase of business that they're in. Most of them are hiring their first virtual assistants. They are going to be more likely to buy my course or my, digital products or possibly, jump in one of my group coaching programs, but they're not gonna hire me as their head of marketing. Like it's just not where they are in their business. So I have these kind of two audiences that are very different. And I don't really market to my high ticket clients because all that is word of mouth. So, I've been building the community builder and working on my course and all of that with like audience number 2. And that's kind of like my happy place where I hang out and have fun, right? So anyway, Ilya is like, we're going to need a niche. And I'm like, oh, she's so right. Like, how do I figure out who I want to market for? And like nothing really excited me with that question. And then I started like holy identity crisis of like, do I even want a marketing agency? Like when I walk into a room and someone says, what do you do for a living? Does that light me up? Is that something I'm excited to talk about? And I started not being able to answer that question in my own mind. And like the panic started setting in of like, what have I done with my life these last 2 years? And what am I going to do next? I feel lost. And that's dramatic. I didn't feel lost, but like the day-to-day, I was completely fine. Running the day-to-day completely fine. But like that long-term vision was still not clear and it was driving me crazy. So, also knowing that I'm trying to mental health proof my business, I have been having all of these crazy thoughts of like, well, what if I just quit everything and started painting or started a business with Gracie or took a break, right? All of these things are racing through my mind and stressing me out probably more than I would like to admit. But, I'm pretty grounded for the most part. Maybe not the last couple months, but I try. But the most important piece is that I'm always seeking and I'm always open to opportunity. And sometimes we just have to wait for these pieces to fall into place. So I'm getting to the good part. So I had a meeting with a potential CMO client, marketing on demand, fractional, head of marketing, whatever you want to call it. And this was exciting because this was for a pretty big deal kind of graphic design company. I knew who they were because all my friends loved them. And I knew that they were not going to bring me on. We had kind of discussed enough in email, but they were like, but we do have these online communities and I still just want to meet with you. So I met with them, and it was a great conversation. Like, they held space for me to talk about what I wanted to do next. And, I kind of let them know, like, I know that I'm kind of going towards a marketing agency, but I just don't know. But right now, the coolest thing would be to just find like another fractional CMO client. So he's like, great, I have someone to introduce you to. So he introduced me to someone. I'm not going to share any of this yet. There'll be more to come. But so I have another meeting in 2 weeks. That's why a lot of this is really premature. But regardless of what the outcome of that is, it doesn't matter because it all led me to this. So I went to this person's website. They're an artist, like a fine artist, and they've worked with some really cool brands, Porsche, Coke, and more, like big deal artists. And, there's a potential there that I might be able to help with marketing. But what this did is it allowed me to sit there and picture myself as, head of marketing for a company like this. And that excited me. But what excited me even more was like, what if our niche or our ideal client are high performing artists? Like, this guy's made $1 million. There are people that really need my help on that level, that high level marketing strategy. They're not just looking for doers. They're looking for someone to manage the doers, someone to lead the doers, right? Like, that is me. And that got me really, really excited. And I don't know the last time you guys have had a breakthrough in your business or in your life, but it can be very emotional and very draining. And it was like the entire world stopped and I was figuring this out. Like, I was sitting there, like, just talking to my business friends, letting them coach me, letting them ask me thought-provoking questions, sitting here staring at my walls. Like, it was all coming together. That what would it be like to be the marketing agency for artists? Because you guys know my degree is in art. I am an artist who never really made any money doing art. I mean, I guess you could call my photography business art. It's artistic, but it's also very commercial, right? It's a very commercial photography business at the end of the day. So I've always been immersed in the art culture. I was an art teacher, but I never actually was an artist that made money. But now I'm this professional community builder, professional marketer, and I feel like now I can help my people. My mom is an artist. My daughter is an artist. Like, I feel like I finally have that soul connection and that story to who I want to serve. And it just felt big, and it felt like that final piece of the puzzle that I've been searching for. And I'm really excited. And as we talk about, mental health proofing my business, I said, I want to create a business that allows me to do what I want. I have tried being the person that sticks to one thing and it's not for me. Like, a couple years ago on this podcast, we talked all about being messy and imperfect and type B and multi-passionate. And that's what put this podcast on the map. And, part of me started working with these big ticket clients and pulled away from that a little bit. And it's my home. Like, creative people, it's my home. It's where I belong. And there's no better brand that screams, wake up and do whatever you want than Messy Success. So there's going to be a lot to come. Nothing's changing. We're just changing who kind of we're attracting for these high ticket offers. Nothing's changing with anything else. Everything's staying the same. It just gives us that opportunity to really hone in on our marketing and who we're talking to, which is, to me, what's so exciting about it, because we've kind of just been talking to everyone, and now we get to really hone in and attract all the artists and all the creatives. And it just feels like where I'm supposed to be, where I've always been. But like I said, there was part of me, I think, that tried to pull away a little bit, that I couldn't build the business that I wanted to in that niche. And it's simply not true. But I do have to figure out how to really, really find some of these high achieving, high performing artists, so that I make sure that I'm not attracting just hobbyists, which of course I am here to help the hobbyists to some extent, but I know you guys do not want a marketing agency yet. So we're going to really build out that ascension model and the different phases of, being an artist or creative. And I did a tiny bit of market research. Like I said, this all happened like so freaking recently. So we're going to be rolling out a lot of little things over the next 6 months and a year. But I did a tiny bit of market research, and most of the artists that are educating other artists are just, here's what I did. Here's what worked for me, right? And they're just sharing that. So what's really cool that will separate me is I can help anyone because I know marketing. I just happen to really love artists and the subject matter. And if I can be the person that gets an artist on stage or lands them their biggest gig yet, like, that fuels me. And I feel like I can finally say that, like, 5 years from now, like, I want to be the go-to marketing agency for high performing fine artists. And that's cool. Like, that's super exciting. I finally feel like I can answer that question. So you guys are getting like such a sneak peek under the hood, because none of that has been shared out in the world, and it will be. But it needs that story of all those little pieces coming together, of like me avoiding the niche question to all of a sudden like having this huge desire to create art, having this huge desire to create a business that my family can understand, wanting to mental health proof my business and create a business that allows me to be creative and do different things. And, that's it. It checks all the boxes. And I just needed that little journey, that little nudge to see what was possible. So I hope in some way that this was helpful for you. And I know that, it can sound a little crazy, but this is how we get clarity. It's by taking action. And if I had not taken the action that I had taken over the last 2 years, I wouldn't be here. You don't just wake up one day and know what to do. You figure it out by figuring out what you don't want to do, by figuring out what you want to do more of and what you want to do less of. That's how you figure it out. So cheers to figuring it out. I am going to go run this meeting and then get on a plane to Atlanta. I'll be sharing all the behind the scenes on Instagram at elizabeth.henson. And if you love this podcast, if you feel like Messy Success describes you and your journey, make sure that you like or send us a review on iTunes or share it with a friend. It would mean the world. We are really leaning back into this podcast and trying to build that momentum back up. So I truly appreciate you taking the time to listen, and I will see you guys next week.